My daughter's husband believed I was merely an elderly fool who grasped nothing. He would creep into my room, assuming I was asleep, rummaging through my belongings in search of valuables. But that evening, when he pulled open my drawer to seize the keys to the safe, his face first paled like snow, then turned sallow like lemon peel. What he discovered there altered his existence permanently, and I simply grinned in the shadows. Before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments where you are tuning in from. The spoon halted midway to my lips as Mike's words pierced our serene supper discussion. So, Robert, that safe on the upper floor, what sort of lock is it equipped with? Emily almost sputtered on her drink. Mike, what sort of inquiry is that? Yet Mike's gaze remained locked on mine, anticipating. There was a predatory glint in his look that caused my heart to race. I placed my spoon down deliberately, stalling for moments. Just interested in household protection, he added, that rehearsed grin expanding across his features. You know, with all the burglaries around here recently. What burglaries, I questioned. I had resided in this suburb for 20 years. The biggest thrill we had experienced was Mrs. Thompson's dog trapped in a bush last week. Mike dismissed it with a wave. Oh, you likely do not catch wind of them. They hush it up to prevent alarm. He bent forward, arms resting on my supper table. But a gentleman your age, residing solo in a residence this large, you surely possess robust safety protocols. Emily fidgeted uneasily. Dad has always been vigilant about securing everything. Correct. But what about coverage? Mike's tone grew more pressing. I mean, if anything occurred to you, heaven forbid, Emily would require knowledge of where all vital items are stored. Would she not? The space suddenly felt confined. I observed Mike's expression, noting how his eyes widened faintly when he referenced my potential passing, how his digits tapped the table when I delayed my reply. I have all matters arranged, I stated at last. Emily is aware of what she must know. But does she know about the key? The query lingered like mist. Emily glanced between us, bewilderment furrowing her forehead. What key? She inquired. Mike's grin broadened. The one in your dad's bedside cabinet. The one that... How do you know about any key in my chamber? The phrase emerged harsher than planned. For a brief instant, Mike's facade faltered. I glimpsed something icy and scheming cross his traits before the worried in-law mask reappeared. I was hunting for pain relievers last month when my migraine was intense. He explained fluidly. M suggested checking your washroom shelf, but I mistakenly accessed the incorrect compartment first. Apologies. Did not intend to breach your seclusion. Emily agreed swiftly. I recall that migraine. You were truly in agony, but I recalled that occasion as well. Mike had been on the upper level for almost 45 minutes, alleging digestive issues after the meal. Ample time to do more than haphazardly seek relief pills. The relief pills are in the medicine holder, I remarked softly. Always have been. Mike's chin tensed subtly. Must have been severely disoriented from the discomfort. The dialogue dragged on afterward, but Mike persistently returned to it. Inquiries about my financial institution, about who else possessed entry to the dwelling, about my everyday patterns. Each probe felt like probes testing a vulnerability, searching for fragility. When the meal concluded at last, Emily rose to gather the utensils. I will manage the tidying this evening. Dad, you prepared the food. I do not object. I responded, already collecting dishes. It was my custom, my method of digesting the day's occurrences. This evening, I particularly required the known cadence of cleansing and wiping. "Come on, dear," Mike said to Emily, his palm already on her arm. "Allow your dad tend to his cooking area. We ought to obtain some slumber." They vanished to the upper floor, and I heard their chamber door shut. But as I scoured the supper plates, I kept revisiting Mike's probes, the manner he knew about a key he should not have been aware of, the nonchalant reference to my demise and Emily's legacy. My hands operated mechanically. Cleanse, rinse, wipe, while my thoughts listed every warning signal I had overlooked during the past 4 weeks. Mike's job loss tale that never fully aligned, his ongoing curiosity in my monetary status, the way he examined my residence as if committing layouts to memory. I completed the final cup and draped the cloth on its peg. The cooking area shone beneath the ceiling lights, returned to impeccable arrangement. But something essential had altered this evening. The dwelling felt altered now, not more secure but vulnerable. On the upper level, I could detect subdued voices through the partitions, then quiet. Time to discover what other astonishments awaited in my own abode. The initial detail I observed ascending the steps was my chamber door. It was slightly open, perhaps 3 inches of shadow visible in the space. I halted on the highest step, my grip firm on the railing. That door had been secured when I descended for the meal. I invariably secured it, a practice from 50 years of solitary living, disrupted only lately by my daughter's occupancy in the residence. But Emily and Mike were occupying the spare chamber along the corridor. There was no cause for anyone to enter my chamber. I remained there for 45 seconds, attentive. No noise emanated from the spare chamber. No activity anywhere on the upper level. Merely the known creaks of an aged dwelling and my own pulse echoing in my ears. I eased the door ajar gradually, anticipating a squeak. It did not. The pivots were properly lubricated, noiseless, but entering my personal area felt like stepping into a violation site. All appeared ordinary at first view. The bed remained arranged, edges crisp and flawless. My spectacles for reading rested on the bedside table where I had placed them. The light fixture stood at the identical position, but my vision, honed by years of systematic existence, detected the inconsistencies right away. The wardrobe door was ajar precisely 3 inches. I always shut it fully. The minor opening would have irritated me throughout the night. My cabinet compartments were not entirely aligned anymore. The third compartment from the top, where I stored crucial documents, had been inserted negligently. An edge of beige envelope protruded like a pale strip. My gut twisted. I advanced to the cabinet, drawing out the compartment completely. The files within had been disturbed, repositioned in roughly the correct sequence, but not precisely. Someone had been meticulous, but not sufficiently cautious. Coverage documents mingled with financial records. My testament, usually stored in the rear file, had shifted toward the front, and the tiny metal key I kept affixed beneath the compartment's edge was missing. I inspected twice, gliding my fingers along the timber surface where the adhesive had been. Nothing. The key that unlocked my safe, the safe Mike had inquired about so offhandedly during the meal, had been found and removed. My hands began trembling. Not from dread, but from fury. This was not haphazard. This was not chance-driven. Someone had invaded my private haven and methodically desecrated it, hunting for particular objects. Someone who knew precisely what to seek and where to locate it. I proceeded to the safe, a compact yet durable version secured inside my storage closet. The electronic mechanism still functioned, but that was irrelevant now. Mike possessed the key for the manual bypass, standing in my closet, encircled by years of gathered items. I felt completely bare. How long had he been scheming this? How many occasions had he entered while Emily and I were below, inventorying my possessions like goods in a shop? The infringement extended beyond pilfering. This was intimate, personal. Someone had contacted my confidential documents, had viewed my monetary logs, had managed items intended for nobody but me. The meticulous barriers I had constructed around my existence had been breached with exact accuracy. But Mike had committed one vital error. He had presumed I would not observe, that I was merely another unaware senior, too credulous and too weary to heed particulars. He was mistaken. I secured the cabinet compartment cautiously, leaving all as I had discovered it. If Mike believed he was acting covertly, I required him to maintain that belief, allow him to assume his incursion had escaped detection, allow him to advance with whatever scheme he was devising, because now I understood what I confronted. This was not about joblessness or brief monetary difficulty. This was about larceny, deliberate, computed larceny by someone who had invested weeks examining my habits and susceptibilities, someone who was resting along the corridor with my daughter. I extinguished the chamber light and commenced preparing for rest, progressing through my standard evening custom. But every motion felt altered now, executed for an unseen observer. Was Mike attentive? Did he realize I had uncovered his exploration as I drew back the blankets? One idea solidified in my thoughts. Tomorrow, I would commence collecting proof. Tonight, I would remain alert and strategize. But initially, I needed to comprehend precisely what I was facing. Rest was unattainable. I reclined in bed, gazing at the overhead, my thoughts looping through the night's disclosures. Every minor noise caused me to stiffen. The residence creaking, breeze through the branches outside, the subtle buzz of the cooler 2 levels below. At 12:15 a.m., per my bedside timepiece, I detected motion below. Gentle footsteps traversed the family room floor. Not Emily's delicate stride, something weightier, more purposeful. Mike. I stayed utterly motionless, regulating my respiration, listening as the noises shifted toward the front of the residence. Then, scarcely audible through the aged residence's slim floors, I heard his speech. Yes, it is me. All are slumbering. A telephone conversation. Mike was conducting a telephone conversation at midnight, murmuring in whispers he assumed nobody could perceive. I lifted myself up in bed, cautious not to cause the bedding to squeak. The wooden floor was chilly against my bare soles as I approached nearer to the ventilation grate that linked my chamber to the family room below. Occasionally, sound carried through the ancient conduits in unforeseen manners. The elderly gentleman certainly affluent. Mike's speech rose clearer now. I discovered financial records, asset collections, the entire matter. We are discussing substantial funds here. My veins chilled. We are discussing. He was not operating solo. Tomorrow evening, Mike proceeded. Emily is attending her reading group session. She attends every Wednesday, 8 to 10. Provides us ideal opportunity. I seized my device from the bedside table, hands quivering as I launched the audio capture application. Whatever followed, I required documentation. I already possessed the safe key. Mike was stating, obtained it earlier this day while they were dining. The aged simpleton stores all critical items there. Currency, ornaments, likely additional financial details. The scoundrel. I activated capture just as his speech grew more lively, more assured. Look, I understand you are concerned about the schedule, but my wagering obligations are not vanishing. Those individuals are not precisely tolerant. If you grasp my meaning, this must occur now. Wagering obligations. That clarified all. The urgency, the methodical tactic, the readiness to betray my daughter's faith. Mike was not merely an opportunistic pilferer. He was a frantic individual cornered by his own folly. Robert's merely some isolated, aged widower. Mike's speech bore a scoff now, probably appreciative for the companionship. He has no notion what is approaching. Heck, he was questioning me about residence protection during the meal this evening. Virtually provided me the data I required. Anger surged in my torso, intense and overwhelming. The offhand rejection in his tone, the manner he diminished me to a cliché and simple target. But I compelled myself to remain silent, to continue capturing. The elegance is he will never doubt kin. Even if he realizes something is absent, Emily will persuade him he merely misplaced items. You know how seniors become regarding their recollections seniors. I was 70, not 97. My recollection was keen enough to recall every phrase of this dialogue. Believe me, by Friday, we will be free. I will inform Emily we received an employment proposal in another region, something pressing. We will be departed before the elderly gentleman comprehends what struck him. Mike was quiet for an instant, attending to whoever was on the opposite end. Then he chuckled, a noise that caused my flesh to prickle. Yes. Well, perhaps he should have been more cautious about whom he permitted into his residence. Life instruction. Correct. The conversation concluded. I heard Mike shifting around below for another moment, likely inspecting latches or openings. Then his footsteps on the steps, cautious and hushed. I promptly halted the capture and slid my device beneath my cushion. The chamber door was still slightly open from his prior exploration. I had not ventured to correct it and disclose that I had observed. Through the opening, I observed his outline pass in the passageway. The spare chamber door opened and closed gently. For a prolonged period after that, I reclined in the obscurity, absorbing what I had acquired. Mike had wagering obligations grave enough to involve hazardous individuals. He had a partner. He intended to pilfer from me tomorrow evening during Emily's reading group session, and he planned to vanish right away afterward, dragging my daughter with him into whatever chaos he had generated. The desecration of my chamber abruptly appeared minor compared to this greater disloyalty. Mike was not simply stealing from me. He was utilizing Emily as camouflage, manipulating her affection and faith to arrange his offense. But he had committed a critical blunder. He had presumed I was defenseless, oblivious, merely another simple prey. He had no clue that I had invested 35 years as a coverage examiner before retiring, or that I had managed abundant frantic individuals attempting to outwit the structure. Mike desired to engage in games with an elderly gentleman. Fine. Let us observe how clever he truly was, reclining there in the dark with Mike's captured admission on my device. I found myself reflecting on how this all commenced. 4 weeks ago, when Emily's frantic call had disrupted my tranquil Thursday morning, I had been perusing the journal, beverage cooling beside me when my device rang. Emily's name on the display always brought a grin, but her tone that day was altered, strained, terrified. Dad, I know it is early, but she had hesitated, and I could perceive her battling not to weep. Mike lost his position last year. We have been attempting to cope, but we are delayed on the loan, and how delayed I had questioned promptly, already grasping for my ledger. 4 months. Dad, I detest to request, but could we perhaps reside with you for a period, just until Mike secures something fresh? The alleviation in her tone when I agreed had been heart-wrenching. My young lady, 35 years old and too proud to seek assistance until she had no option. Of course, she could return home. Of course, I would aid. But even then, something had troubled me about Mike's circumstance. He had labored for the same firm for 10 years. Emily had mentioned positive performance assessments. The reductions had been abrupt, unforeseen. Yet, when I had sought details from Emily, her responses were indistinct. Mike managed the finances. She clarified. He was overseeing the employment hunt. She relied on him to resolve it. I should have urged more firmly, should have posed more queries. 4 days later, they had arrived with a moving vehicle and too many containers for a brief sojourn. Emily had embraced me firmly on the entrance, moisture in her eyes murmuring gratitude repeatedly. But Mike had been different, cooler, his clasp firm but short, his gaze already surveying my residence with an intensity that should have warned me. Nice location, Robert, he had stated. Strolling through my family room as if evaluating it, must be valued considerably in today's economy. At the time, I had attributed it to natural inquisitiveness. Now, I recognized he had been computing, assessing, scheming. During their initial week, I had endeavored to make them at ease, cleared area in the spare storage, modified my patterns to accommodate 3 individuals instead of 1. Emily had adapted easily. She knew the residents, knew my customs, but Mike had posed endless queries about my community vigilance timetable, about which neighbors were present during the day, about my banking practices, my purchasing routines, whether I kept funds in the residence. All perfectly harmless questions from someone trying to adjust to a new living situation, except they were not harmless at all. I remembered the morning he had offered to transport me to the financial institution. Save you a journey, he had said. I need to update my address with jobless aid anyway. But at the institution, he had lingered near the service window, observing as I made my deposit, posed casual questions about my account varieties, my secure deposit container, warning signals I had disregarded because I desired to trust my daughter's spouse, because Emily adored him and I adored Emily. The wagering should have been evident. 2. Mike's device rang constantly, calls he always accepted in seclusion, stepping outdoors or into another space. He had claimed it was prospective employers, connection contacts. But I had noticed how his disposition altered after these calls, the strain in his shoulders, the way he would pace afterward. In the correspondence, monetary statements addressed to Mike had been arriving at my residence for 3 weeks. Credit providers, recovery agencies. I had assumed they were merely updating his location after his position loss. Now I comprehended they were demand notices, ultimate requests, warnings. Emily knew none of this. She trusted Mike entirely, accepted his explanations without question. When he said he was handling their finances, she believed him. When he said the employment market was challenging, but he had opportunities, she supported him. She had no idea her husband was drowning in wagering debt, had no clue that her childhood home was being observed like a target. My trusting, loving daughter was being used as the perfect cover for theft. The thought brought me back to the present moment, to my dark bedroom and the weight of Mike's recorded confession on my phone. In 18 hours, he planned to rob me. In 48 hours, he planned to disappear with Emily, pulling her into his web of debt and deception. But he had made one catastrophic miscalculation. He had assumed I was just a lonely old man, grateful for company and easy to deceive. I was not lonely. I was careful. I was observant. And I had 35 years of experience dealing with people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. Mike wanted to steal from me tomorrow night. Fine. Let him try. But he was about to learn that some old men fight back. I awoke at 7 o'clock. Same as always. The recording on my phone felt like proof of a bad dream, but the timestamp confirmed otherwise. 1:15 a.m. Mike's voice distinct as sunlight, planning to pilfer from me tonight. Downstairs. I initiated the coffee brewer and began my usual morning meal routine. Omelets, bread, apple juice, everything exactly as it had been for the past 4 weeks. When Emily appeared in her gown, yawning and appreciative, I smiled warmly. "Morning, dear. Rest well like an infant. Thank you again for allowing us to stay here, Dad." Mike appeared 25 minutes later, hair still moist from the wash. He looked refreshed, self-assured, a man with a strategy. "Wonderful morning," he said, settling into his seat. "What does everyone have scheduled for today?" I set his coffee down carefully. "Oh, the usual. Might run some tasks later." Mike's eyes focused slightly. "What kind of tasks?" "Just various things. Supply shop. Perhaps the financial institution." I watched his reaction. A small muscle twitched near his right eye. Nothing thrilling. The financial institution. Mike leaned forward. "Everything fine monetarily," Emily chuckled. Dad has always been wary about verifying his accounts personally. "Old customs." "Not wary," I corrected gently. "Cautious. You cannot be too cautious these days." Mike nodded too eagerly. "Completely correct. Identity pilfering. Digital frauds. It is a wilderness out there for someone your age. Someone my age." There it was again. That casual dismissal wrapped in false concern. "Speaking of cautious," Mike continued, "I have been considering your residence protection. This suburb seems fairly tranquil, but you never know. It is perfectly secure." Emily interjected. "Dad has lived here 20 years without issues." But Mike was not listening to his wife. His attention remained fixed on me. Still, a man living alone. Valuable items in the house. It pays to be prepared. "You mentioned that safe upstairs. Is that where you keep important documents?" I took a slow sip of coffee, pondering my response. "Some things. Yes. What about cash, I mean? If the banks failed or something happened. It is smart to have emergency funds easily accessible." The boldness was astonishing. He was sitting at my morning meal table, consuming food I had prepared, asking me to list my assets for his convenience. "I have what I need," I said simply. Mike tried a different tactic. "You mentioned being a deep sleeper last month. That is good. I worry about older folks who cannot get proper rest." I had not mentioned any such thing, but I nodded anyway. "Oh, yes. Once I am out, I am oblivious to the world. Especially lately. I have been so exhausted in the evenings." "That is normal at your age," Mike said. "Your body requires more rest." Emily shot him a glance. "Mike, that is impolite." No, he is right," I said quickly. "I usually take something to aid sleep. Knocks me right out until morning." Mike's posture relaxed noticeably. "Perfect. Let him think I would be unconscious and helpless tonight." "Well, I should let you folks plan your day," I said, standing to clear the dishes. "I will probably retire early tonight. All this family activity has me more tired than usual." "That sounds ideal." "Dad," Emily said, "you deserve rest." Mike helped carry plates to the kitchen, and I caught him glancing toward the stairs, toward my bedroom, calculating, planning. You know, he said casually, I might stay up late tonight, watch some television in the family room. I am a bit of a night person. Of course. He was. I smiled and nodded. Make yourself at home. The controller is on the coffee table. After the morning meal, Mike announced he needed to make some calls about job opportunities. Emily decided to organize their belongings in the spare room. I had my opportunity. I think I will run those tasks now. I told them, you two enjoy some quiet time together. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Mike watching from the upstairs window. Not the spare room window, my bedroom window. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Tonight could not come soon enough. The supply store was my first stop. I needed materials, but more importantly, I needed to think through every detail of what was coming. Mike had made his intentions crystal clear at the morning meal. Tonight, while I supposedly slept deeply with the help of medication, he planned to enter my bedroom, locate the key he had spotted weeks ago, and open my safe. Simple, clean. The perfect crime against a trusting old man. Except the key was not there anymore. I had relocated it at 6 this morning after lying awake since Mike's phone call. The small metal key now rested safely in my kitchen miscellaneous drawer, buried beneath elastic bands and fasteners. Mike could search my bedroom cabinet until his fingers ached. He would find nothing. But that was not enough. I wanted him caught in the act, humiliated, exposed for exactly what he was. I wanted evidence so undeniable that even Emily could not deny her husband's true nature. In the supply store's celebration section, I found what I needed: a small streamer launcher, the kind used for surprise parties, spring-activated, designed to create maximum chaos with minimal effort. Perfect. I also selected a package of ultra-fine shimmer, the kind that adheres to everything and never fully removes, platinum and bronze, because if Mike wanted to be a thief, he should appear the part. Back home, I found the house vacant. A note from Emily on the kitchen surface. Gone food shopping with Mike. Back by 3 p.m. Love you. Ideal timing. I had 4 hours. In my lower-level work area, I carefully disassembled the streamer launcher. The system was elegantly simple, a spring-loaded pusher that would activate when sufficient force was applied. I replaced the harmless paper streamers with my shimmer mixture, adding just enough to cover someone thoroughly without causing harm. The tricky part was adjustment. I needed the device to activate when Mike opened my cabinet drawer and reached inside, but not from casual contact. After several tests with a metal rod, I found the right sensitivity. Installation required accuracy. I placed the modified launcher inside my cabinet drawer, positioning it so the trigger would engage when someone reached toward the rear, exactly where the key had been concealed. To anyone glancing inside, it would appear like normal drawer contents: a few old images, some fasteners, miscellaneous items. But reach in with intent, search with purpose, and surprise. I tested the setup 4 times, using a measure to simulate Mike's searching motion. Each test triggered flawlessly, sending a cloud of shimmer exactly where an intruder's face and hands would be. The device reset easily, ready for its real performance. Next came the key placement deception. I positioned a fake key in plain sight near the front of the drawer, an old baggage key that looked similar enough to fool someone in haste. Mike would spot it immediately, reach for it confidently, and trigger my surprise. The beauty was in the psychology. Mike expected stealth, silence, Success. He had budgeted for a quick, quiet theft. He had not planned for a shimmer explosion that would mark him as clearly as a marker pack marks bank robbers. By 2:45 p.m., everything was in place. The drawer looked innocent and normal. The trap was armed and ready. Mike would walk into my bedroom tonight, expecting to find a helpless victim. Instead, he would find 24-karat justice. I heard vehicle doors closing in the driveway. Emily and Mike returning from their shopping trip, probably feeling every day and ordinary. Mike had no idea his crime scene had become a trap. "I need to run out for a quick task," I announced after midday meal. "Will not be long." Emily looked up from unpacking provisions. "Need assistance with anything?" "Dad just picking up something at the tech store." "You two relax. You have done enough shopping for one day." Mike barely glanced up from his device, but I caught the flicker of interest in his eyes. The old man running tasks alone, leaving the house unguarded, probably confirming his mental map of my routine. The electronics clerk was a helpful young woman named Sarah, who did not flinch when I explained I wanted a surveillance device for my bedroom. "Lot of intrusions in your area?" she asked. "Something like that. I need something compact with good dark vision, and it needs to be cordless." Sarah showed me several choices. I settled on a small model that linked to my smartphone with movement detection and 10 hours of power duration. The device was smaller than a pack of cards and came with magnetic attachment options. "You will want to test the placement," Sarah advised. "The application lets you see exactly what the device sees in real time." Perfect. I paid in currency and drove home, the device sitting in its container beside me like a hidden tool. Back home, I found Mike and Emily viewing television in the family room. They looked comfortable, household-like, like a normal pair staying with Emily's father, not thieves preparing for a heist. "Just going to rest for a few minutes," I told them, heading upstairs. "All this running around has me exhausted." In my bedroom, I closed the door and got to work. The device needed to capture Mike's approach to the cabinet, his reaction to opening the drawer, and the shimmer explosion that would follow. But it also needed to remain completely concealed. I tested several positions using the smartphone application. On top of my shelf, the angle was incorrect. Behind my light, too obvious. Finally, I found the perfect spot. Nestled between volumes on my bedside stand, angled to capture both the cabinet and the center of the room. The magnetic mount held perfectly, and the device's dark casing blended with the book backs. Unless someone was specifically looking for monitoring equipment, it was invisible. I spent 25 minutes adjusting the angle through the application, ensuring optimal coverage. The movement detection was sensitive enough to activate when someone entered the room, but not so sensitive that normal settling or outside noise would trigger false recordings. Power duration was crucial. The device needed to last from now until Mike made his move, potentially 9 to 11 hours. I switched it to movement-activated mode to conserve energy, then tested the dark vision capability by turning off the lights. The infrared image was crystal clear. Mike's face would be perfectly visible when he triggered my trap. I also tested the recording function, making sure the sound was clear enough to capture any words Mike might utter during his crime. If he said anything incriminating, and desperate people often talk to themselves, I would have that evidence too. The setup was elegant in its simplicity. Mike would enter my room expecting darkness and silence. Instead, he would be filmed from the moment he crossed the threshold. The device would capture his search, his discovery of the fake key, his reaching into the drawer, and the spectacular shimmer explosion that followed. Visual proof, audio proof, and physical proof, all in one beautiful package. I repositioned a few volumes to better camouflage the device, then stood back to admire my work. Everything looked normal, innocent, just an old man's bedroom, ready for a peaceful night's sleep. Downstairs, I could hear Emily and Mike talking quietly, planning their evening. No doubt. Mike was probably calculating the hours until his theft window opened. He had no idea the window had become a trap door. I checked my phone one final time. The device feed was clear, the recording function active, the power showing full. Everything was ready. Tonight, Mike would finally reveal his true colors, and thanks to modern technology, every moment would be preserved in high-definition detail. Let the games begin. The evening meal passed calmly, with Emily discussing community changes and Mike checking his device frequently. I played my part perfectly, the weary grandfather, ready for an early bedtime after a busy day. By 9 o'clock, we had settled in the family room. Emily curled up with a volume while I claimed my usual seat, making a show of rubbing my forehead. "Long day," I murmured. "Think I will retire early tonight." Mike looked up from his device immediately. "Actually, Robert, I was hoping we could share a beverage first. You know, father and son-in-law bonding time." The suggestion emerged unexpectedly, but his tone was carefully casual. Too casual. "That is sweet," Emily said, not looking up from her volume. "You two should spend more time together. I was thinking about that bottle of premium scotch I saw in your kitchen," Mike continued. "High-end stuff. Perfect for a nightcap." I kept my expression neutral, but internally, I was intrigued. Mike had been planning this conversation probably since the morning meal. The timing, the suggestion, the specific mention of expensive whiskey. Nothing was accidental. "I appreciate the thought," I said, "but I am on treatment that does not mix well with spirits." Mike's smile tightened subtly. "Come on. One small glass will not harm. We are practically family. Really, I should avoid it entirely." "Dad is right," Emily chimed in. "The physician was very specific about his heart medication." But Mike was not surrendering easily. "What about just a toast, then? A tiny sip to celebrate?" He paused, searching for something to celebrate. "To family." The persistence was revealing. A normal person would have accepted my first refusal graciously. Mike was pushing because he needed me to consume something specific, something that would ensure I slept deeply tonight. "I tell you what," he said, standing up. "I will pour myself a glass and we can just sit and talk. No pressure for you to drink." He vanished into the kitchen before I could object. I heard storage doors opening and the clink of glass. When he returned, he carried 2 glasses, one with amber liquid, one empty. "Changed my mind," he said, settling back onto the sofa. "Poured you just a splash for the toast. Barely a tablespoon." He held out the second glass. The whiskey inside caught the lamplight, looking innocent enough. But I had investigated coverage fraud for 35 years, and desperate people always got careless. "Mike, I really cannot—" "One tiny sip," he insisted. "Emily, tell your father one sip will not kill him." Emily looked between us, sensing tension she could not identify. "If Dad says no, maybe you should respect that." Mike's chin tightened. For just a moment, his mask slipped completely. I saw frustration, calculation, and something close to alarm flicker across his features. "You know what I said?" Standing carefully, "I am more tired than I thought." I think I will take one of those resting pills and call it a night. Mike's posture changed immediately. Resting pills physician prescribed them last year. Potent stuff. Knocks me out completely. I will be oblivious to the world until morning. Relief flooded Mike's face. That sounds perfect. You need your rest. Sweet dreams. Dad, Emily said, kissing my cheek. See you in the morning. I made a production of climbing the stairs slowly, pausing to grip the railing like an old man struggling with fatigue. At the top, I turned back. Do not stay up too late, you two. Mike, help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Thanks. Robert, sleep well. In my bedroom, I went through the motions of preparing for sleep, changing attire, brushing teeth, turning down the bed. But I also double-checked my device positioning and confirmed the shimmer trap was ready. I turned off my bedroom light and settled onto the bed fully clothed, positioning myself where I could see the hallway through my slightly open door. Downstairs, I could hear the television playing softly, Mike and Emily talking in hushed voices. Then Emily's footsteps on the stairs, the spare room door closing. Mike stayed downstairs waiting, probably watching the clock, calculating how long it would take for my resting pill to take full effect. I checked my phone, 10:47 p.m. The device showed my empty bedroom in perfect dark vision detail. The trap was set. The stage was prepared. All I had to do now was wait for my son-in-law to reveal his true nature. At 3:43 a.m., I heard the first creak on the stairs. I had been lying motionless for hours, positioned so I could see the hallway through my barely open door. My phone showed the device feed in real time. My empty bedroom, waiting in perfect dark vision clarity. Mike moved like a skilled intruder, avoiding the spots on the stairs that groaned under weight. He had learned my house's peculiarities during his 4-week stay, mapping every sound that might betray his presence. The hallway floorboard outside my room whispered under his weight. Then silence. He was listening, making sure his resting pill story had worked its magic. I controlled my breathing, keeping it deep and regular, the performance of my life, with my daughter's future in the balance. My door handle turned with extreme slowness. Mike's outline appeared in the doorway, illuminated by the faint hallway light. He stood frozen for 45 seconds, watching my supposedly unconscious form. Satisfied I was deeply rested, he slipped inside. Mike moved with predatory assurance now, believing himself unseen and untouchable. His dark clothing made him nearly invisible, but I could track his movement by sound and the shifting shadows. He approached my cabinet with the certainty of a man who had planned every step. 4 weeks of observation had taught him exactly where to find what he needed, the key that would unlock my safe, my security, my life savings. I watched him position himself directly in front of the cabinet. His hands reached for the third drawer, the one containing my hidden key and his spectacular surprise. The drawer slid open smoothly. For a split second, Mike's posture radiated triumph. He had found his target, reached inside confidently, fingers seeking the metal key that would solve all his problems. Then my streamer bomb detonated. Boom! The sound was magnificent, like a celebration favor crossed with a small firearm. Platinum and bronze shimmer erupted in a glorious cloud, coating Mike from head to toe in sparkling particles. The explosion echoed through the house like festive gunfire. Mike stumbled backward, cursing violently as shimmer settled in his hair, on his clothes, across his shocked face. He looked like he had been attacked by a decoration store blast. transformed into a walking light show. "What the heck?" he gasped, brushing frantically at the shimmer that clung to everything. I performed my awakening with award-winning precision, sitting up with startled confusion. "What on earth?" I called out, reaching for my bedside lamp. What was that noise? Light flooded the room, revealing Mike in all his shimmering glory. He stood frozen beside my open cabinet drawer, covered head to toe in festive particles, holding the fake key I had placed as bait. "Mike!" I blinked with theatrical bewilderment. "What are you doing in my bedroom?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Shimmer fell from his hair like holiday flakes. I heard a noise," he stammered. "Thought someone might be intruding." Intruding. I glanced around my room with apparent confusion. "And you ended up sparkling." I'd looked down at himself, finally grasping the full extent of his transformation. He resembled a rejected holiday decoration, platinum and bronze shimmer clinging to every surface of his body. "There was some kind of trap," he said weakly. "Trap?" I tilted my head innocently. "In my bedroom." From down the hall came the sound of feet hitting the floor. Emily, awakened by the explosion, was coming to investigate. Mike's eyes widened with panic. "How do you explain being covered in craft supplies while robbing your father-in-law at 4 a.m.? Robert, what is happening?" Emily's voice carried worry and growing alertness. Mike opened his mouth desperately, but no believable explanation emerged. He was caught literally shimmering-handed, in the act of betraying our family. I allowed myself the smallest smile as footsteps approached down the hallway. Justice, it turned out, was beautifully sparkly. "Dad, are you okay?" Emily appeared in the doorway, tying her gown belt with quick, worried movements. Then she stopped dead, taking in the scene before her, me sitting up in bed, apparently confused and concerned. Mike standing beside my open cabinet drawer, covered from head to toe in glittering particles like he had been dipped in a decoration store. What in the world? Emily's voice caught. "Mike, why do you look like a holiday ornament?" Mike's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Shimmer drifted from his hair with each movement, settling on my bedroom carpet like festive flakes. "There was a noise," he said finally, his voice strained. "I came to check on your father at 4 a.m. Emily's tone sharpened. "And you ended up covered in, what is that shimmer? Some kind of security device," Mike said quickly, brushing frantically at his sparkling clothes. "It went off when I opened the drawer." Emily's eyes moved from Mike to the open cabinet drawer, then to me. "Dad, do you have security devices in your furniture?" I maintained my expression of elderly confusion. "Not that I know of, dear. I was sound asleep until that explosion woke me up." "Then why were you in his cabinet drawer?" Emily's voice carried a new edge I had never heard before. Protective, suspicious. Mike's story began crumbling in real time. "I was looking for something to help you sleep. You were tossing and turning, and I thought Robert might have some extra rest aids." "Rest aids?" Emily's eyebrows lifted. "In his bedroom cabinet." I thought maybe Mike gestured weakly at the drawer, sending more shimmer cascading to the floor. "Mike," I said gently, "my medications are in the bathroom shelf. They always have been." The silence that followed felt heavy with implications. Emily looked between us, her expression shifting from confusion to something harder. "So let me understand this," she said slowly. "You left our bed at 4 a.m, came into my father's bedroom while he was sleeping, and opened his private cabinet drawer, looking for medicine you knew was not there. It is not like that. Then what is it like? Emily's voice rose slightly, because from where I am standing, it looks like my husband was going through my father's personal belongings in the middle of the night. Mike's desperation grew more visible. Emily, you have to understand. I was just trying to help. Help with what exactly? I interjected mildly. What were you hoping to find in that drawer? Mike's eyes darted between us. The question hung in the air like an accusation. He swallowed hard. I was confused, disoriented. I thought I heard someone intruding. Intruding, Emily repeated flatly. So, you decided to search my father's bedroom furniture. I was not searching. Then what do you call opening his cabinet drawer? Mike's shimmer-covered hands clenched into fists. Why are you interrogating me like this? I am your husband. The defensive anger in his voice seemed to hit Emily like a physical blow. She took a step back, and I saw something change in her expression, the last traces of trust beginning to crumble. You are right, she said quietly. You are my husband, which is why I am asking you to explain why you are standing in my father's bedroom at 4 a.m. covered in craft supplies with your hand in his private drawer. Mike looked trapped, cornered by the weight of his own implausible explanations. Shimmer continued to fall from his clothes like evidence of his guilt. I can explain everything, he said desperately. Then please do. Emily crossed her arms. Because right now I am very confused about what my husband was doing in here. I watched my daughter's face and saw the exact moment her protective instincts shifted from Mike to me. The moment she began to see the situation not as a misunderstanding, but as a threat to her father. Mike must have seen it too, because his next words came out edged with panic. Emily, you have to trust me. But trust, once broken by shimmer and lies, is not easily repaired. Emily's eyes stayed fixed on Mike, and I could see her mental wheels turning, processing, analyzing, drawing conclusions that her heart did not want to accept. Mike, she said slowly, I need you to tell me the truth right now. What were you really doing in my father's bedroom? Mike opened his mouth, but I knew the moment had come. My daughter deserved better than watching her husband spin more lies. She deserved the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. Emily, I said gently, reaching for my phone on the bedside stand. There is something you need to hear. Mike's face went pale beneath the shimmer. Robert, do not what? Emily's voice sharpened dangerously. Do not what? Mike. I found the recording from 2 nights ago and held up my phone. Dear, I recorded something last night. A phone conversation. I think you should listen to it. No, Mike said quickly. Emily, whatever he thinks he heard, be quiet, Emily snapped, never taking her eyes off me. Dad, play it. I pressed play. Mike's voice filled the room, clear and damning. Yes, it is me. All are slumbering. The elderly gentleman certainly affluent. I discovered financial records, asset collections, the entire matter. We are discussing substantial funds here. Emily's face went completely still. Her eyes widened as she listened to her husband's voice discussing my finances with a stranger. Tomorrow evening, Emily is attending her reading group session. She attends every Wednesday, 8 to 10. Provides us ideal opportunity. Stop it, Mike said desperately. Emily, I can explain. Shut up. Emily's voice was deadly quiet. Just shut up and let me listen. Mike's voice continued from the phone. I already possess the safe key. Obtained it earlier this day while they were dining. The aged simpleton stores all critical items there. Currency, ornaments, likely additional financial details. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. She stared at Mike like she was seeing a stranger. Look, I know you are concerned about the schedule, but my wagering obligations are not vanishing. Those individuals are not precisely tolerant, if you grasp my meaning. Wagering obligations, Emily whispered. What wagering obligations? The recording continued. Robert's merely some isolated, aged widower, probably appreciative for the companionship. He has no notion what is approaching. I watched my daughter's face crumble as she heard her husband's casual dismissal of me, his assessment of my vulnerability, his cold calculation of how to exploit my kindness. The elegance is, he will never doubt kin. Even if he realizes something is absent, Emily will persuade him he merely misplaced items. You know how seniors become regarding their recollection. Emily made a sound like she had been physically struck. Her husband's voice discussing how to use her trust to cover his theft of her father. Believe me, by Friday we will be free. I will inform Emily we received an employment proposal in another region. Something pressing. We will be departed before the elderly gentleman comprehends what struck him. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily stared at Mike, tears streaming down her face. Wagering obligations, she whispered. You were going to pilfer from my father, M. Listen to me. You called him an isolated, aged simpleton. Her voice broke. You were going to steal from him and then vanish, taking me with you as your cover story. Mike tried to step toward her, but she backed away like he was hazardous. How much, she demanded. How much do you owe? It does not matter. How much? Mike's shoulders drooped. 50,000. Emily's legs seemed to give out. She sank against the doorframe, staring at the man she had married. You have been lying to me for months, she said, about everything. The position loss, our finances, why we really needed to stay here. I was trying to protect you by planning to pilfer from my father. Emily's voice rose to a shout. By using me as your alibi while you destroyed the man who raised me. Mike tried once more. Emily, we can resolve this. No. Emily straightened, and I saw determination enter her spine. No, we cannot. You planned to victimize my father. You called him names. You were going to let me believe he was losing his memory while you stole from him. She looked at Mike with disgust. Get out. Emily, get out of my father's house now. For the first time since I had known him, Mike had nothing to say. Mike stood there for another 15 seconds, shimmer still falling from his hair like tarnished flakes. Then something in Emily's expression, pure protective fury, finally convinced him that his marriage was over. This is not finished, he said, his voice turning ugly. Half of everything we own is mine. I will get my share. You mean half of our debt? Emily's voice was ice cold. Because that is all we have. Mike, debt. Wagering debt that I knew nothing about. I will fight you in court. With what money? Emily stepped closer to him, and I was proud to see she was not backing down. You just admitted you owe 50,000 to dangerous people. What exactly are you going to fight me with? Mike's bravado crumbled. He looked at me with something approaching hatred. This is your fault, old man. You turned her against me. No, Emily said firmly. You did that yourself. When you decided to plan a robbery instead of asking for help. When you called my father names. When you lied to me for months. Mike tried one last desperate approach. Emily, we are married. We took vows. You broke those vows when you planned to commit a felony against my family. Emily pointed toward the door. Get your things and get out now. I watched Mike realize that his scheme was truly over. No more manipulation. No more lies. No more playing the victim. Emily had heard his own words condemn him. He left the room without another word, tracking Shimmer through my house like a trail of evidence. We could hear him in the spare room throwing clothes into bags with bitter violence. Emily sank into my bedside chair, looking exhausted. "Dad, I am so sorry," she whispered. "I brought him into your home. I put you in danger. Dear, you could not have known. I should have seen the signs, the phone calls, the way he asked questions about your money." She looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. "How long have you known?" "Since the night before last. I heard that phone call and knew I had to protect both of us." Emily managed a weak smile. The Shimmer bomb was genius. I wanted him caught in the act. Or should I say Shimmer-handed. That earned me a genuine laugh, even through her tears. Mike reappeared in the doorway with 2 hastily packed bags, still sparkling like a defeated celebration favor. Leave your key on the kitchen counter," she said without looking at him. "Do not contact me. My lawyer will contact yours." Mike opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to realize the futility. He walked away, and a minute later, we heard the front door slam. Emily and I sat in silence for a few moments, listening to Mike's car start and drive away into the night. "Can I stay here?" Emily asked quietly. "Just until I figure things out." "Dear, this is your home for as long as you want it." 4 months later. I was making coffee when Emily came downstairs, dressed for her new job at the local library. She had taken to morning routines with the same methodical precision I had always admired. "Morning, Dad. Morning. Dear. Sleep well like an infant." She poured herself coffee and settled at the kitchen table. Any regrets about the great Shimmer trap of April? I chuckled. Only that I did not film his face when it exploded. Emily's divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Mike had contested nothing. Hard to argue property division when you are facing potential criminal charges and $50,000 in wagering debt. "Library busy today?" I asked. "Story time at 11. Then I am helping Mrs. Jenkins research her family history." Emily smiled. "I love it there. Quiet, peaceful, full of people who actually appreciate books." She paused at the door. "Thank you, Dad, for protecting me, for handling everything so elegantly. Thank you for trusting me when it mattered most." After she left, I sat in my kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. The house felt peaceful in a way it had not for months. No tension, no lies, no one calculating how to exploit my kindness. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Forgot to mention Mrs. Thompson asked if you would help her install a security system. Apparently, word got around about your innovative home protection methods." I laughed out loud. Maybe I should patent the streamer bomb approach to home security. Outside, summer was settling over the neighborhood. My suburb remained quiet and safe, just as it had been before Mike's brief invasion of our lives. Sometimes justice comes from courtrooms and police. Sometimes it comes from trusting your instincts, setting careful traps, and letting people reveal their true natures. And sometimes justice sparkles. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.